Hello everyone, I'm Dan Franklin, I'm digital editor at Random House. I'm sorry if any of you were expecting Fionnuala Duggan right now, but it's a bit like expecting to pay to see Led Zeppelin and getting Status Quo instead. Here I am, I'll see if this works. This is my first experiment with Prezi, so I hope it's going to work. As you can see, I got my hair cut for the conference. It is about change, isn't it? I'm going to talk to you about 3 digital products. 2 of them, I'm admitting straight up front, are going to be Random House products. But the caveat there is I've been at Random House for 3 months, so I've come to these with a fresh pair of eyes, and I'm sort of learning about them as you are. I hope that's enough of a fudge. And the third is by Penguin. As we all know, and we've heard something about this today, there's been some anecdotal evidence, and there's a hell of a lot of research out there at the moment about the level of interaction going on with screens amongst young people, especially young teenagers, or as you know them, tweens and screenagers. And one of the biggest online destinations for them, and this is one of the main things I want to talk about today, is audience, is a website called stardoll.com. Now, Stardoll is an interactive Barbie site, effectively, not something that I'm that familiar with. And when I was researching this on Friday, I'm sure the IT department were wondering why I was spending so much time on this site. Basically, it consists of creating your own me dolls for which you purchase clothing, and you'll purchase it with star dollars. Now, star dollars aren't a real currency, it's an abstract currency based on peer reviews of each other's dolls. Then it also allows endorsement by celebrities. This is a Star Bazaar. This one is run by Hilary Duff, very kindly of her. So obviously this is where young girls can go and dress their dolls with her approved merchandise. But they do work with real brands, which include Mix 60 and Baby Fat. But here's the interesting thing. There are 90 million registered accounts for stardoll.com. There are 19.5 million unique users per month. The average age of the users is 15.4, and 94% of the users are female. It is the second most popular site for girls aged 7 to 12 after Facebook in the UK. So there you see you have a hugely popular site with a certain demographic. At Random House Children's Book, they saw the alliance here and then thought, well, what else plays to this market particularly well? Evan couldn't find a name for it earlier, but I'll tell him, it's paranormal romance. And here, interestingly, is another breakdown of the demographic and where these people are situated over the globe. Fascinating here that 20% are from Poland, and I'm hoping that's not just cybercrime. It's 20% in the United States and a large proportion in Brazil as well. So here we go. This is the ultimate in paranormal romance, Twilight. Robin Pattinson sort of dominates this arena like a sort of god. So the Random House Children's Books team and an author created the world called Wintermill, in which the story of Mortal Kiss plays out. Mortal Kiss is about a love triangle, albeit a relatively safe love triangle, between Faye, Lucas, and Finn. Finn is a sort of bad boy, I think that's him on the left there, who's come in from out of town as part of a biker gang, who also happen to be werewolves. And throughout the way the novel plays out and the way it is written is it's 1,500 words per day. This ran from mid-September to the end of October last year. And it ran out on an interactive widget which was hosted on the site. I'll tell you about that in a minute. At 2 points, the audience were invited to decide key things about what Faye does with 2 of these guys, and one of which is to decide which one she takes to the dance. Interestingly, the Mortal Kiss clothing line, as you can see, lovely goth chic here, was the most popular clothing line on the site, even more than the brands that were already on offer. This is a snapshot of the widget. Basically, it could be read on the web page, probably the preferred place for a lot of this demographic to be reading. It was only available in English, but it had such a huge fan base towards the end that there were people actively translating it on elsewhere in the internet. This was such a huge success that it is now a print book, which Random House put out, Children's Division put out in January. Here's some stats around it. I mean, it wasn't translated into these languages, but there were paraphrased sort of summaries going up in 17 different languages. There were 17 million page views overall, and a group of 90,000 members was assembled on the site. So that's all about publishers trying to go to the audience, capture that audience, create something for that audience. It's not strictly innovative in terms of technology, but it's something which publishers, and particularly in the digital realm, are accused of failing at quite often. But I think this is an interesting idea where you go to somewhere where you already have an audience and you play to the strengths of what you do for them. It's not quite the end of this series. There is going to be a part 2 coming this summer, so I'm sure you'll all be keen to get registered while I'm finishing this presentation. The next person I want to talk to is probably known to about half of you here, but I know there's a lot of people from international here. Spaced was a big series in the 90s starring Simon Pegg, who's here on the top left in his breakout film, Shaun of the Dead, which was also a huge sleeper hit in the United States. He's gone on to star with his sort of partner in crime, Hot Fuzz, as a policeman. Partner in crime, sorry, Nick Frost in Hot Fuzz as a policeman. Recently could be seen in Paul, which I think did relatively well here, but again, I think it was very successful in the States. Century, part of Random House, published his autobiography, Nerd Do Well, towards the end of last year. Simon has a sort of unique, as well, appeal towards an online demographic as well. He has coming up to 1 million Twitter followers. He appeals to this sort of geek chic, which is becoming ever more fashionable in this day and age. And he crosses a lot of different pop culture touch points. He refers a lot to the circularities that have taken place in his life, where he's a Star Wars fanboy and he's a Star Trek fanboy, and now he's appearing in Star Trek himself. So this came out of that. This is a graphic novelization of the fictional component of his autobiography, which goes by the title, The Adventures of Simon Pegg in Canterbury, who is his robot butler, and the Mystery of the Scarlet Panther and the Star of Nefertiti and the Tablet of Amhotep IV, hereafter simply known as Adventures. This was developed with a company called Robot Media, which operate in Spain, which we'd recommend heartily to anyone here who's from Spain. It was made available on the iPad, on the iPhone, and in what was one of our first forays onto the Android market, also available for them as well. As you can see, it was basically a panel graphic novel. The interaction was very fluid. It sort of contained everything that you'd hope intuitively to get from a graphic novel on a device. But what I think is interesting here is that this really played in as a complementary digital addition to already existing print work and a work that we had in ebook as well. And it just seemed to suit the fan base very well and has done very well as a result. Here's Simon telling us a bit more about it. It was 68 pages long. You had sort of good panning and zooming interactivity. You had a song picker, which let you sort of create your own playlists around reading the book. I think this area of using music while you're reading is up for debate. I worked on a Nick Cave enhanced ebook, and we talked about a soundtrack to that as well. And it's an area which publishers will continue to explore, I think. There's a very good buzzer, which sort of mimics explosions. I'm only joking with that one. And it's got added Random House editorial stuff. It actually has his commissioning editor chasing him around, trying to get the last of his memoirs out of him. Perfect author, geek fan product. Editorial integrated, as I say. It was our first foray into Android. And we think this is this is the divergence of where marketing and content come to play. This was a product that we published that could be bought in its own right, but it was also a marketing exercise which drove people towards the book. So the last thing I want to talk about is the MyFry app, which was released last year by Penguin. Here is a sort of long snapshot of the index color wheel, which was very attractively rendered for the app. Stephen Fry, in many ways, is the ultimate analog human being. Here he is in his stripy socks and corduroy trousers and jacket, and on a bare wooden chair, but everyone knows very famously he's one of the greatest advocates of, particularly Apple technology that we have in the UK, and he really straddles those two worlds, I think, unlike any other person that you could think of, as well as being a nation's sweetheart. This is the MyFry. This is how it appeared to you on your iPhone. Basically, the app was ordered. There was an index which was ordered into four broad categories. They were people, subjects, emotions, and Fryisms. So the way the app went was that you could search the text that way, and they presented chunks to you as a result of those results. So here you go. This is a search for comedy, and that sort of shows you the bars in which you can find those appropriate sections, and they give you a slug of that content. So if you're looking for Blackadder, you could search the book and look to see everything that covered that topic as well. Why that's interesting as a publisher is I think this is one of the first and certainly the bravest attempt at a non-linear reading approach that we've seen so far. I think a lot of people talk about filleted and chunked content and trying to get our heads around all this. Someone earlier was saying, about how difficult it is to switch our systems towards that, and I know that I'm scaring our bibliographic people by talking about selling shorter content from pre-existing books, but this is definitely an area that publishers and authors will look to make further gains in. It was a big success in that it got Penguin 5 number ones of all the editions that they put out. That was an ebook, an enhanced ebook, an audiobook, a physical book, and the app. A slight question, there were some people at the time were saying, well, you know, this is all very well and good, but we can't get the whole book in this app. And there's a question mark, which I thought when I was using it, and which I'll continue to think about for a lot of the digital products and innovation that you see going out in the trade, and that's the extent to which we might be too far ahead of our readers. And often, you know, in a football match, you're too far ahead of the game, great, you're offside. And a lot of people say, oh, I thought of that 10 years ago. Well, that was good for you 10 years ago, but what are people viably doing now? And I think it's something that we constantly have to be assessing, which brings me to a point which I'd like to make even more strongly now off the back of what Evan was saying earlier, which is it is a responsibility of publishers to be bold and daring in this area. William Gibson once said, the future is here, it is just not evenly distributed. It's clearly not as evenly distributed as far as Bloomsbury's offices. We haven't even got a Harry Potter ebook, for example, but I don't think this should stymie other publishers in trying to see what people are willing to engage with and to what extent we can almost reformat and rekindle what the, well, that was an unconscious pun, what different reading experiences might be. So that's all from me. If you want to follow what's going on or what I'm up to or failing to do, as we all are, that's my Twitter handle and that's my email address. Thank you very much.